Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And it's the come down from the draft, Justin. We're going to talk about the offensive UDFAs. We got five of them this year. Want to talk a little about Joe Schoen, right? And do a quick synopsis of where we should be at as a fan base, as a team with Joe Schoen. Over 2 years on the job, his third draft in the books. Third free agency in the books, heading into year 3. How are you doing? It always feels weird to doing the first episode after the draft pod.
Yeah, man, you're back home in Florida. I'm home in New Jersey. I think I'm at a point where it's kind of weird when I'm not doing an episode in the John Boy Media Studios in Manhattan. It kind of took 2 days to work from home. I'm good, ready to talk about these UDFAs. One of them went to St. Peter's Prep, and I'm going to say nothing negative about him.
And I broke the news on him. Justin, I love the UDFA episodes. One, I feel like it just makes us special in our own way, that we're just we are obsessed. Yeah, we are two people who dedicate our lives to freaking UDFAs. Also, I think it makes, if you are someone who listens to this, I think it makes being a fan a little more fun, especially in the preseason, right? You can put, you could put numbers to names, right? Oh yeah, Bobby and Justin talked about that guy. When we eventually do get that next Victor Cruz, you get to say, hey, I was there on the scouting report, the week after the draft on the UDFA podcast, right? So that's, where you get the Victor Cruzes, the Nick Gates, the other guys who've turned out to good players as UDFA. So I love this episode, Justin. So we'll get into all of that. We'll talk about Joe Schoen first. Justin's episode was brought to you by some special people. Jeffrey Sadu, Cade Hambright, not Turkey Dark, Hambright, Mike English, he's English Mike, Matt Lange has the range, Matthew McGinnis, he's part of the McGinnis Book of World Records, Van Loo, PJ Abplanalap, Abplanalap, Alex Sane Till, Mike reminds me of that corner that the Commanders drafted.
That's right, yeah.
Joshua Colin. Some guy just left his email. I'm not going to read it because he probably doesn't want his email out there, but I'm going to say good game, Eunice. KD91197. I don't think that's your real name. By the way, KD got swept in the first round again. Lehu is her. Ite High. Evan Purdy, Brock Purdy's more successful relative. And Sid Ganta. Don't you want that, Ganta? Gabe Itch. He's itching for some UDFAs. And Ryan Gianelli, who was a big fan of the offensive UDFA pod last year when we signed Tommy DeVito. Justin, who are these people? Yeah, Tommy DeVito was part of this pod last year. I was just about to criticize
you. Where it's you bring up Victor Cruz and Nick Gates, but we broke down Tommy DeVito. It is pretty ironic that Tommy DeVito's scouting report of, this guy can work a quick game and keep an offense on schedule. Then he goes in there and actually versus the NFL. It's no. He's just not going to keep an offense on schedule, and he doesn't know how to work the quick game.
Well, in the preseason, that's what it looked like, right?
Yeah.
And then he just
even at Illinois, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, and then once he's had to deal with, at Illinois, they did a good job. I think it's okay, the Giants' regular season offensive line versus regular season starters is a lot more similar to what he saw at Syracuse, and that was... And that was a mess, and it's just all right, let's get it deep. Bryce Ford Wheaton, probably the most hyped UDFA we ever had, and we had to put a little bit of cold water on that one. Thank you. Justin, where did all these Patreons come from?
Patreon.com/TalkinGiants. You mentioned even Brock Purdy's brother. Well, Brock Purdy's other brother is at Nebraska. I believe he's the starting quarterback under Matt Rule. Whoa, worlds collide. Patreon.com/TalkinGiants. $2 a month plus month tiers to get to hang out with us live. While we're recording the shows, got multiple people in the Patreon chat saying, right now, when we're recording this, is the perfect time to hang out and chill. And I love that. So again, patreon.com/TalkinGiants. Bobby's going to start sending out some stickers again. There's some shirt raffles too. Appreciate all of our patrons. Love you. You all right?
Appreciate you guys very, very much. Just before we talk about the offensive UDFAs, it's been a little hot in the streets. I think a lot of people... We're not a lot, right? We did polls, right? And sometimes of a vocal minority. But a lot of people thought this was going to get reset with a quarterback, Justin. And then, we talked about ad nauseum, right? Of hey, we want a quarterback. We want the right quarterback. And it didn't seem likely. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, Joe Schoen won and won too.
Yeah. The Giants. Joe Schoen, in my opinion, made the correct decision of not drafting J.J. McCarthy, taking Malik Neighbors. But we also had to acknowledge in all that, hey, just because you do that does not mean that the rest of life is easy, because they don't have they are looking for their next quarterback, right? They were willing to trade up to get that next quarterback. So Joe Schoen was like, okay, what does Joe Schoen have to account for after, his essentially his third offseason has ended? And it's like, well, he's asked for patience in some of his press conferences. Like, does he deserve patience? What is the plan at quarterback? Now, Joe Schoen does deserve time, but you don't just, and I think he's going to get 4 years. Not no matter what, but I think it's just very likely that he's going to get 4 years. But you don't just get to year 4 without seeing what's happening and talking about what's happening. And if it's going bad, it needs to be called out, right? Like, the Daniel Jones contract ends up being a mistake, and they realize now that, right? That is a mistake. The drafts, to me, this is the biggest part of like where Joe Schoen has not sold me, is the drafts have been underwhelming so far. Obviously, we just had one that me and you both really like, but you can't judge it until these guys get on the field. 2022 produced what looks like a bust at pick 7. An inconsistent player at pick 5 that they were hoping to get better, a good slot wide receiver in round 2, 2 misses in round 3, and some decent pieces on day 3. And then 2023 has a cornerback we're hoping grows but shown some flashes, a center who struggled a lot as a rookie, a deep threat wide receiver, and nothing of note yet on day 3. Now, you have to give draft classes time to grow, but after 2 draft classes, every single one of these day 1 and 2 picks really do need to grow, outside of maybe Wandale. Even though Wandale's numbers don't match it, like but Wandale looks like the player that we wanted out of him when he drafted, but he's also a low ceiling type of player. So, like, even though Kayvon's put up double-digit sacks, we all realize for a guy that was picked 5th overall, we need way more consistent production out of him, right? And that's probably the best piece that we've gotten out of it so far. We'll see how Deonte Banks grows in the year 2. So they do deserve time, but at some point, these guys have to start developing and growing. And guess what? A lot of times, rookies come in right away and look really good. In year 2, they turn into studs. Like, there's no rule saying that can't happen. And then you consider the path to QB is extremely hazy and not fully in their control. Like, it is a very weird spot for them, where it's like, I don't know if I envision, finishing year 4, which is what I think Joe Schoen's going to get at minimum, and seeing, like, okay, we're competing to win the division every year and competing to win in the playoffs every year, and not just, like, in a way, I think Brian Daboll's best decisions, which have been hiring of coaches, has kind of hurt the roster building a little bit, right? Because they won all those playoff games, or they won that playoff game year 1, and then this year, when it should have bottomed out and we should be talking about the quarterback they drafted, this coaching staff was able to squeeze out 3 wins in a row of Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of ironic where usually you hear GMs at the beginning of their tenure, and Joe Schoen also did this, also preach patience, build for today, compete for tomorrow. But now Joe Schoen's preaching patience, and it's almost like, well, buddy, you kind of caused the situation, and the main reason why you're calling for patience. And let's call it like it is, Bobby. He's calling for patience without saying it for the quarterback room, right?
Yes.
He's calling patience that the quarterback room is not figured out. Now, I think him and Brian did clearly, they're not giving Daniel Jones that contract if they don't believe in him. So I do think they're almost, without saying it was a mistake, Joe Schoen is kind of saying it's a mistake. You can read the tea leaves. He's never going to confirm nor deny the Patriots trade-up offer, but, everybody knows that it's there. The exact, I think I have an exact idea of what it was, but the exact offer, who knows, right? It is kind of ironic that Joe Schoen is calling for this patience, and Giants fans have to be patient when it's like, well, you kind of caused this, bud. But here's the bottom line, man. You just went through the whole, 2 draft classes and the results and inconsistencies, consistencies, whatever. The Giants need to win more football games this year than they did last year. And they need to be way more competitive in games, and more importantly, not just winning football games down the stretch with Tommy DeVito, but winning football games and being in it in the month of September and the month of October. If you're in it there, then let's see where we're at. Trade deadline, let's see where we're at, and let's go from it from there. But you can't have 2-8 from last year. That's like when you are a patience, I'm willing to be patient on an end season result. But if we're talking in October how the season's over again, that is absolutely unacceptable. I won't accept that.
I think it will boil down to is what are we thinking of these 3 draft classes in the season, right? Are we talking about, man, these guys, these 2022 and 23 class are really developing and coming along. The
and 23 if they win
class,
games,
Malik
they will
Neighbors
develop.
hits the ground running. Tyler Newbin's really, really good right away. Tyrone Tracy's, contributing. Theo Johnson's growing. Andrew Phillips is a starter. Like, to me, it comes down to the draft classes because that is your best way of building a team, and that is what you own the most as a general manager. Is what do you draft, right? And that's part of one of our draft day speeches is like that's what's the beautiful thing about football, right? Is like what we know about Joe Schoen is I think is pretty damn good process. We've seen it in his trades. The DJ contract was basically the only thing off the beaten path with that. But at the end of the day, football comes to how good are you at just evaluating a college football player and putting him into the NFL, and that's the part that we have yet to see. So. But I did want to talk about that as we close off this draft of where do we head into year 3 with Joe Schoen? Like, is he on the hot seat? I don't think so. Does he deserve to be on the hot seat? Kinda, right? I don't think they should be in a rush to fire him, but at some point you got to start getting results out of the players that you brought in, right? And I don't view 2022 as a Joe Schoen success. I view it as a Brian Dable & Co. success, right? Like that was, that was done by 4 years of Dave Gettleman's roster, and it still was a bad roster, but they did a great job coaching that team up, and were able to put them in the playoff. Like, I don't give Joe Schoen much credit for the 2022 success, even though they were able to get some bargain bin free agents that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and ironically, in 2022, you could say the same thing. Plus, you have the pro personnel department and the moves that they made with Isaiah Hodgins and
like the bargain bin free agent signings.
Yeah, which you
Jason Pinnock.
You can evaluate the
Fabian
50.
Moreau.
You can evaluate the 55th and the 60th guys on rosters in August. Nick McLeod is still here. Nick McLeod's our starting CB2, and in my opinion, as of right now. So you can evaluate those guys, but draft picks, it's kind of crazy how that's worked out. And we bring this up because Dan Duggan talked about it on his live chat room on The Athletic, and he's kind of right. But for me, it just boils down to like you just got to win. I mean that's what football boils down to. If you win, you get excited and guys are developing, and that's good. And if you lose, then everybody's pissed off, and then everybody's job's in jeopardy. But especially in September and October, we got to have competitive Giants football, and you can't be getting your ass kicked. They're not going to be on national television, thank God. But you can't be getting your ass kicked at MetLife. You can't be getting your ass kicked on national television and just not playing competitive football during those months.
Yep. All right, but it's time. And part of that, Justin, is your undrafted free agents. And we're going to look at the offensive guys in this episode. Justin, do you want to start? I'm going to start with the guy who I think, maybe not the most exciting from this class, but I think has the best chance to be a rostered player in the NFL.
And I agree with you because it also goes to the depth and quality of player at this position as well.
But I even just viewed as player evaluation too, and that is offensive guard, interior offensive lineman out of North Dakota State, Jake Kubas. North Dakota State is just north of South Dakota.
Yeah, and you can watch Kubas play South Dakota State. And funny story about South Dakota.
I sucker punched Dallas Goedert in South Dakota.
Right.
Knocked his ass out. Jake Kubas is 6'3", 308 pounds, 32 and 5/8 arms. So like a guard body. I think he needs to add a little more weight. His 40 was a 5'17", 31-inch vertical, 4.65 shuttle, and 28 bench press reps. 3-year starter for the Bison at North Dakota State. Justin, when you watch him play, you're like, okay, this guy understands the offensive line position, right? Like he's got solid athleticism. He plays with the urgency with to him. What I think is he needs a year of just getting in the weight room and becoming a stronger player, right? If he can get to like an average NFL interior offensive line strength, I think he's someone that can last in the league. But right now, the strength and the frame is just going to hold him back. But like as far as his playing, like he's quick in his pass sets with good footwork. His punch lands really well. He replaces hands, but again, his punch doesn't bring a ton of pop either. Like he works laterally well with the rusher, and then in the run game, Justin, like he's quick. He fires into his run blocks. He gets to the right spot with good leverage. He plays at the low pad level. Could be a little head heavy at times, trying to make up for some of his strength deficiencies. He's got flexible hips in zone. Like he works the second level well as a puller. Like there's a lot of good film on him. Like you said, you watched him versus South Dakota State. I watched him versus Northern Iowa and Christian Boyd a little bit, who was someone who got drafted, I think, in the 6th round. Giants had in for a top 30 visit. So, like the two things I need to see out of him is just get stronger as a player. And the other thing is just better IDing blitzes and stunts, right? There's sometimes where it's like, okay, you're somewhat playing your responsibility, but keep your head on a swivel because you're looking to help to the right, and there's a rusher coming to the left, and your right tackle has it taken care of. Like, go peel off and take that. Like, use your instincts a little more than just on the whiteboard what you're supposed to do.
I actually saw that there was some good stuff of, I don't necessarily know if they were stunts, but kind of picking up blitzers where he kind of worked off of double teams well. In pass pro, hey, I'm doubling a guy here, I'm helping the center here, and then I see that there's this blitzing linebacker coming in, and I'm going to break off of him and go. So I thought I had a note that he is a smart player and does a good job of recognizing blitzing players and when to break off those double teams. So I think maybe we watched some different games. So I think that's a good note where you saw some deficiencies in that, and then I saw some good. I had a note that he does it well sometimes. I think he gets out of his stance well and is balanced in pass pro. I think he's a balanced player. Moves really well, and he's athletic. You could see it show up in pass pro as a puller and moving up to the secondary level. He'll sometimes beat linebackers to spots. Good bend and decent strength in his lower half. But guys can definitely manipulate his upper half. So it's not that like he does need to add strength, right? And I think at both lower half and upper half. But I actually think his lower half he would hold up better. But then you would see guys really be able to manipulate his upper body. And that's where Kubas really needs to add that strength. I think he can lean in the run game, like you said, being head heavy. He winds up on the ground a little too much for me. That's like
he's trying to make, and it's not because he's an unbalanced person. It's because he's trying to make up for his strength deficiencies, right. And so he's leaning, and then strong defensive tackles are just gonna dump you like that.
Yeah, but I will say he drives his feet after initial contact, but doesn't really gain a lot of ground. But I just like seeing those feet chop, 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 chop. Hands consistently placed inside the breastplate. So yeah, Bobby, I think that there's a path to Kubas having possibly a good camp if he had some more strength, and maybe even making the team if this is a guy that they wanna keep around and take advantage of being on a cheap contract for a couple years. So Jake Kubas, North Dakota State, not South Dakota State.
And this is why we're talking about him first, even though like we're going to talk about John Jiles out of West Florida. He's the most exciting guy we're going to talk about. But Kubas, again, it's because you see the path, right? And it's just get stronger, get in the weight room this next year, and become a stronger human being. Yeah. Do what you got to do to add strength, right?
But there's good stuff.
Put 10 pounds of muscle on, maybe 2 pounds of fat, eat a couple cheeseburgers, give yourself a little extra weight, and then you're like, okay, now the solid athleticism matches, with some strength. You're never gonna be the strongest guy, but just get to an average strength. And like you said, the technique is good, right? Like the only big flaw I see in the technique is, like you said, is sometimes he ends up on the ground because he's leaning in the run game. He's coming out a little too hot, trying to get some movement because he knows, like that's his way of being able to move guys, But there's really solid film. I even put together, I'm going to put it out on the Talking Giants account, I guess today when people are watching this, like a little cut up of him, right? And I left plays out. A lot of times with UDFAs, you're grasping for clips to post. With him, I just like, okay, let me just put a minute's worth of instead of going through it all. And that was against Northern Iowa, which is D1, has a Christian Boyd, a drafted player on that roster. Justin, quick, last Giants player to be drafted out of Northern Iowa.
Oh, last Giants player to be drafted out of Northern Iowa?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well,
come on. Simple. It's not real.
What's his face? What's his... Oh, my... I'm trying to...
The Raiders signed him.
The edge rusher.
Yeah. What's his name? Buddy.
He was really light.
Name, buddy.
He blocked
Senior
a
Bowl
punt.
guy.
He blocked a punt. Nick Filato really liked him. I'm naming all the things about this.
You forgot his name.
Ellerson Smith.
Ellerson Smith. There you go.
Wow, that was
Come
crazy.
on, buddy.
I named you everything about him besides his name.
Yeah, you literally named everything there is to know about
Nick
Ellerson
Filato
Smith.
loved him.
while also not knowing Ellerson Smith. So yeah, again, like this is the guy who we're talking about first because I can see the path for him, right? Like out of honestly a lot more than the rest of the guys that were, the four other guys that we're talking about.
Yeah,
like I can clearly see, I guess Dante Miller, because we're going to talk about Dante Miller in this one.
Yeah,
I can see the path. I just haven't seen enough of football for Dante Miller, and with the Giants' current running back situation, it's a little tougher. But do you want to talk about the next guy, Justin?
Yeah, let's move on to the next guy.
This guy is a candidate for like, hey, not going to predict NFL success. I am predicting training camp and preseason fun though, because watching this guy play versus the competition he played was just fun. It was like watching a man playing against children, and that's John Jiles, the wide receiver out of West Florida, at 6'2", 219 pounds, 34 3/4-inch arms. I mean, the guy has vines hanging from his shoulders. Pro day testing, a 4.56 40, not good. 34-inch vertical, a 4.35 shuttle, a 7.12 3-cone, and then 17 bench press reps. For West Florida, he had 66 catches, 1,255 yards, and 16 touchdowns on 19 yards per catch. Academics made this guy a D2 guy. He had Division I offers, just was never able to go to a Division I school because of the academics. And
yeah, I was wondering why he didn't transfer. I was like, come on, man. Like, I think you could do it.
Yeah, so he's going to be 24 in July. And the thing that pops off, Justin, is my man can moss somebody. Like, it is the first play when you find him, because it's hard to find film on him. I was able to find a couple games and scrub through them. Some bad, ugly football at West Florida. But when you just like find that little 5-minute video on YouTube of him, he goes up, man. It is unreal to watch him just go and moss guys. Like it's jaw dropping. And he, like, again, the ability to leap, to go up high point with those long arms and just control his body is just flat out nuts. That being said, Justin, he doesn't move the way you would look at an NFL wide receiver would move, right? Like, he gets to his long strides down the field, and that looks good, but he's just got kind of below average NFL speed. And you even see him, like, there's a receiver we're going to talk about next where I'm like, what are you trying to do? With John Giles, you can see what he's trying to do, trying to work leverage and stuff. It's just not smooth because he's kind of just, big and kind of straight-legged. Like, he'll work tempo, try to get leverage, but he just kind of runs straight up and down. But, man, you get him 15 yards down the field, let him stride, you throw a ball up, and it's just like the guy catches everything thrown to him besides a couple screen passes versus FAMU that he dropped. It's just a fun guy to watch. Like, I'm so excited for training camp and preseason, Justin. I'm hoping they just start throwing the ball up to this guy.
John Giles definitely made the people of West Florida and Pensacola very happy at some
That's where we
points.
fly into for the Senior Bowl. We should have stopped and talked to John Giles. Like,
I know.
I'm pissed that we didn't know about him. I would have stopped there and like, hey, do a workout for us, man. Please, I will pay you.
It's really funny because, like Bobby said, you kind of watch a little bit of highlights on YouTube of these UDFAs, and some of the camera work and the camera shots of some of these smaller schools, and you just see middle-aged men, white guys with sunglasses on with beer cans in their hands.
Oh my God, I noticed the exact same thing.
Just rising up to their feet after this guy makes an insane contested catch. And there's definitely some dudes just being like, yeah, that kid can play ball. I'll tell you what. I had that funny transaction going on in my head.
That happened like 10 times.
We're just white dudes with sunglasses on and beer cans in their hands, just rising up as John Giles makes an insane catch. Bobby, I can't believe how high he can jump. And like I actually, I don't know if there's a way to look this up. He has 34.25-inch arms. You tweeted that out from the Talking Giants account. I think that's maybe it has to be like the 90th percentile in this class. Bobby, I don't know if there's a way for you to look this up, but I think his arms are 34.25 inch. I think you posted that from the Talking Giants account.
Yeah.
That has to be like the 90th percentile from this draft class. Like even Keon Coleman, I don't even think he has arms that are even 33 inches, and he's like, one of the big guys of this class. Xavier Legette, same thing. So that has to be like 90th percentile. He looks like Mr. Fantastic. Or just are your arms stretching out longer than they actually are? It doesn't look natural. But yeah, he's the size strength combo to create yak. It's not really the speed, but man, he can put his shoulder down and maybe give it to some dudes. He's gonna be a contested guy, a contested catch guy if he finds.
He'll jump over you too.
Yeah, he will. Oh, yeah, and that yak too. There's plays where he's jumped over guys on the sideline. I will say he's like I think he's a big project when it comes to like route running and nuances and stuff like that.
Yes.
So there's gonna have to be a lot of work that's done, but he does have some different types of releases that he goes to win at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, like I said, he
Florida.
tries stuff. It doesn't always work great, but he does like at least work stuff.
Yeah, and also there was one play on his highlight film where I don't even know if it was him, but they highlighted him. Does he have experience on the punt return team? He has a blocked punt on his resume.
Punts.
He has a blocked punt, at least one blocked punt on his resume with those big arms. So if we're talking about a UDFA guy where a path to making the final 53-man roster. Maybe the pump block team is where John Jiles has got his best shot.
All right, so I'm looking through arm length right now. There is, I found one guy with 34.25, not as much as him. There is one player out of, Dane Brookwood did a lot of just rank. He doesn't do write-ups for them all.
No.
I keep on scrolling and it doesn't end. I keep on saying there's one, I think, okay, out of 313, there's one player who has longer arms as a wide receiver in this class than John Jiles. Can you guess who it is?
Also, I said 34.25. It's 34.75 for John Jiles.
Yeah.
It's a known player?
Yeah, when I say it, you'll think, oh, I should have known this.
Shit. I thought Jermaine Burton was a candidate, but no, he's not that big. He's physical, though. I don't know.
Just think of very big wide receiver. I'm hitting you with a lot of trivia, draft trivia in this episode.
It's not the kid from Colorado State, is it?
No.
All right, no, then I don't know.
All right. The Eagles drafted him. I said he was a cornerback highlight reel at the Senior Bowl. Johnny Wilson, man.
Oh, Johnny Wilson. Oh, damn it.
I looked up our way too early, because every year I tweet out 4 of the way too early mock drafts the day after the draft.
Yeah.
2 of the 4 had the Giants drafting Johnny Wilson, a 6th-round wide receiver. And then you watch Johnny Wilson, and you're like, this is a 6th-round wide receiver, even though everyone in draft media is telling you, 3rd round, top 100.
No.
And he gets drafted in the 6th round.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Giles is a ton of fun to watch. I'm excited to see him in camp, if not anything else. Because we just talked about, he has all the arm length in the world. He can jump over cats. It's truly something insane to watch. Someone quote tweeted my tweet and what the hell am I watching? I was like, yeah, this is fair. What the hell are we watching right now? This is crazy. All right, Justin, next guy. Who do you want to talk about next?
Ayir Asante, St.
All right,
Petersburg graduate.
Yeah, let's do wide receiver versus wide receiver. Ayir Asante. A year ago, we were not talking about Asante, but now we are. Wide receiver out of Wyoming. 5'9", 181 pounds, 30.25-inch arms. Ran a 4.52 40, 36-inch vertical, 7.01 3-cone, 4.14 shuttle, 14 bench press reps. For Wyoming, Justin, in 13 games, he had 21 catches, 372 yards, and 6 touchdowns on a 53% catch rate. It was a Holy Cross transfer. I know that this is a local guy, Justin, and I know you talked to some of his coaches and stuff. He is a small frame wide receiver who's going to have to be in the slot to succeed. I think he needs a ton of work as a route runner, right? Go watch him versus Texas, and Texas has a pick 6, and he basically just screams to the world, I am running a 5-yard. There's just no, there's just no sell in his route. He just telegraphs what his routes are, Justin. And with that size, you just can't live like that, right? And then he also has a bad drop problem. The main thing that I liked about him, Justin, and I saw you tweeted the exact same thing, is he does have the like a good ability just to he makes the first guy miss.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Ayir Asante, graduate of St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Shifty and consistently made the first guy miss with good vision of what is in front of him. In case you didn't know, I also went to St. Peter's Prep. I think, and I say think because I'm not going to say anything bad about Ayir Asante, think he knows where to sit and where to get open to help out the QB. So he said that he had a really bad play, resulted in a pick six against Texas. Well, I think he had a nice catch versus Texas this past year that shows that on the sideline where he kind of just sat in a zone. Maybe it's not exactly where he was supposed to be, but he kind of sat. Nice catch on the sideline. Believe it was like a 12-yard catch. Solid open field speed. His stop-start is fun, especially when he has the ball in his hands. Hard worker. I think he has some kick return experience as well. So, again, you're talking about path to the 53-man roster. Maybe it's there. So what I did is because he went to St. Peter's Prep and I'm friendly with I call some of their games sometimes. I DM'd the offensive coordinator at St. Peter's Prep when Ayir was there. And I'm just going to read you the whole thing. A lot of it is kind of him as a person, but we just kind of told you who he is as a player. So it's kind of cool to hear who these guys are as people. Something I would say about Ayir is that he was mature enough as a high schooler to see the big picture. A lot of high schoolers get mixed up with recruiting comparisons, etc. Ayir kept his head down and just wanted an opportunity and showcased his ability his senior year. His progression and climb to one of the best wide receivers in New Jersey was really special to watch. Senior year had 4 100-plus yard games and 4 multi-touchdown games over 1,000 total yards. Ayir is a special person. He came back when he was training for his pro day, and the prep pride just oozes. He spoke on some of the things relating to NFL opportunities, and it was just like a flashback because he was the same way in high school, goal-oriented, willing to do whatever it takes, and just wanted an opportunity. Holy Cross gave it to him, and he excelled. Then Wyoming and excelled, and now the NFL. And there's no doubt he'll excel, not just based on talent as a wide receiver, but his versatility, special teams. It will be a great opportunity for him. I can't say enough about him. Shifty, elusive wide receiver that could go the distance at any point is now going to have the opportunity to do it at the highest level. We often talk about the brotherhood at prep, and Ayir is the epitome of that. It comes from a great family, great teammate, knows how to lead people, infectious personality, hard worker, values education, and just an exceptional young man with a tremendously high future. I'm excited for him and his family.
Yeah, it's always good to get a local guy in there. And like you said, like there is some good like understanding of where to sit in a zone. Like even on that play, you mentioning versus Texas, like okay, that's some smart ball right there.
Yeah.
It's just if he wants to live as a slot wide receiver, he's got to just get a better mastery of just the first 7 yards of route running is basically it with him.
Sure.
All right, Justin, the next guy we're going to talk about is Dante Miller, running back out of South Carolina. We're finally talking about this guy, Justin. This happened in the middle of draft month, and we're so busy that we're just like, honestly, I don't have the time to give this interest. We'll talk about him on the Undrafted Free Agent Pod because that's essentially what he is. He's just an early UDFA. Running back out of South Carolina, 5'8", 190, 31.25-inch arms. So his story is crazy, right? So, he had a rough, upbringing anyways, but, figured out, went to Columbia, right? Smart kid, went to Columbia. Because of the COVID year and stuff, like you can't redshirt at Columbia, right? It's just you are there for 4 years. You can play football for 5 years, right? They're not working the college, system. They're just trying to get guys in there 4 years in, 4 years out. So he's like, do I go and start my own life with a Columbia degree, or do I go and try and play on the next level, and try and get to the NFL? So he transfers to South Carolina, Justin, and he plays but very little in 2022, and they didn't realize the rules of like redshirting and stuff. There's some type of mix-up, and it was like, okay, well, you're not eligible to play another year after this, even though he only had 6 carries in 2022.
Yeah.
If you play more than 4 games, it counts. It counts as not a redshirt year.
From my understanding, Columbia canceled their year in 2020, or a good amount of schools did not. So even though they played limited games, there were still kids that got game action. Columbia canceled their football season in 2020. He played 2021, then transferred to South Carolina 2022, and then it was the mix-up heading into the 2023 season where the eligibility thing happened.
Yeah. So he didn't play last year, and then I guess was eligible for the supplementary draft, but then realized, and then once they figured it out, they're like, oh, you're just free to sign anywhere. So the Giants picked up and signed him after the South Carolina Pro Day because of those numbers at the Pro Day. Ran a 4.27 40, a 4.5 shuttle, a 7.413 cone, and he even had like Now, pro day numbers aren't always as accurate as the combine, but his 40 time would have been the fastest for backs, and his bench press of 28 reps
That's crazy.
would have been better than all of them. He is a fastest, but again, he's only had 6 carries the last 2 seasons. So, first of all, I was a little annoyed by, like, because I didn't watch him. I thought we were gonna have like a handful, like a good amount of carries at South Carolina, maybe as a backup. I thought this guy was like a guy who's played the last 2 years. So we had to go scour for film on him.
2021.
Yeah, and like I did watch the actual 6 carries of him at South Carolina. Like I went through those game logs and figured it out.
Had a 20-yard run.
Yeah, had it versus South Carolina State. He is a fast as hell scat back, right? Like, basically, all the success he had was bouncing, getting to the sideline, which is awesome, right? Like, he runs laterally really well. There's just not a lot of film of him playing through contact or with pace and stuff, so he has a lot to work on. But right now, you just look at Dante Miller as what he is. Like, maybe he can have some special teams ability, but he is... he's not going to make the roster right away, right? One, just the Giants running back room. They have Devin Singletary and Eric Gray and Tyrone Tracy Jr. So he's not going to make the roster, but hang around the practice squad. That speed cannot be taught, and try and learn some more of the down in, down out back stuff. Because right now with him, it is get to the corner or bust with him.
Yeah, I am rooting for him to. If you're a good kick returner and if you got vision. This speed is elite, and I honestly, I'm really interested to see how the new rules go with the kick return, because do you want a guy that do you value speed? Or is a guy that is too fast going to be too fast for blocks to develop, and you don't want a guy that's too fast? You kind of want a guy that tempos things a little bit more, kind of like Ayir Asante. Ayir Asante doesn't have the greatest straight line speed. It's good, but he kind of could wait for shit to kind of develop as it goes down the field. So I'm going to be interested to see how that kind of develops during camp. Really, I'm Bobby, I'm going to say this. I'm really excited to watch special teams during training camp this year. If you were to tell me that,
I think they're going to actually practice it this year, not just view it as a 30-minute screw around period.
Yeah, if you were to say, Justin, you're going to say that sentence next summer, I'd punch you in the face. Here's what I will say about Dante Miller. If there's a position where someone of Miller's background could maybe make it, it's running back, right? We see all the time. The rookies, even if they're drafted in the,
being a running back honestly gives you like a better shot than every other UDFA.
For sure, yeah. He is fast, man. He would have had the fastest 40 time out of all running backs. I will say, you mentioned the shuttle and the 3-cone. I just looked at RAS. The shuttle and the 3-cone were not good. They were in the red. And I think that backs up with the film, where it ends up in a lot of east-west movement before we go north and south, where the mentality is to beat guys to the corner and then turn the corner, where I didn't see a lot of one-cut shiftiness kind of going north or south, getting the 4 or 5 yards. Like, if you look at a lot of his highlight stuff,
it's like watching Tyreek Hill at running back.
Can I beat you to the corner? Can I go around the outside? There are some plays, and I even posted one of them where it was like insane contact balance, where it looks like his leg is about to break and he's about to be tackled and go to the ground, yet he somehow stands up and gets more yards after contact. So maybe it is in there, but who knows how he's running now? He hasn't actually faced live contact for more than 6 carries since 2021, right? He can bring the pop at times. He isn't afraid to lower his shoulder, but that's against Columbia competition. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger in the NFL. So I'm enticed. Like, Dante Miller is a player just traits-wise that I am enticed to see what happens with him this summer, what happens with him this training camp. I think he is going to get a lot of run, possibly during the preseason. So I'm excited to see what happens. The last
back is always going to get that, right? Like, the Giants have their 3 guys, Jashawn Corbin, Deion Jackson, and Dante Miller. So it'll be interesting to see. That's a lot. Now, that's a lot of backs to have in camp. It'll be interesting to see if they all stick through the entire thing.
Yeah.
Justin, the last guy we're going to talk about is Marcellus Johnson, offensive lineman out of Mizzou, 6'4", 313. Had some pretty bad testing, right? The 40 was a 519. Don't use that. The shuttle was a 490. The 3-cone drill was 813. That would have been like bottom 2 in the combine. He was a left tackle at Eastern Michigan before transferring to Mizzou and was a backup guard and tackle this year with 1 start. And even in that start, he had to leave early when his leg got rolled up. With Marcellus, man, I hate to be so negative, but I just don't see it with him. Right? Like, I think the athleticism, like the film backs up the testing. Like it's just kind of lacking. Like he's got noticeably just heavy feet, whether it's in pass protection or the run game. Like he just doesn't get to his landmarks or either. And then strength wise, like you even go watch him in Eastern Michigan. I watched a game versus UMass. Right? That's not you're not getting a lot of powerful DNs probably there. And him at left tackle, and he was consistently just giving up push in his pass sets, pretty consistently. Pair that with the athleticism, like it's just. I unfortunately for Marcellus, we try and not tear down UDFAs on this podcast, kind of talk about what they can do, but I just don't see it with Marcellus Johnson, Justin.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is the one guy that I texted you, just being like, this is not fun. The feet are a little clunky. The play is sloppy. I think getting out of his stance, sometimes his feet go way high in the air.
Dude, that's crazy. I had the exact same fucking note. It's like, why is his feet chopping so high in the air? Which is something I've never really even thought about an offensive lineman in scouting.
It's almost like, you know how you tell a young kid, or even like Pop Warner, Pee Wee, whatever. You almost tell them to exaggerate the movements because you just want them to get down the muscle memory. It's almost like I was watching that. Like, hey, 10-year-old Justin, just fucking exaggerate everything that you're doing. And that's what I felt like I was watching. Now, I will say, his play is sloppy and, getting out of sense and everything. It's because I don't think he holds anything back. I think he plays like a bat out of hell.
He plays with urgency. It's just a little, he just doesn't have the athleticism to make that urgency work.
We got to hone it in a little bit. So he plays like a bat out of hell. He's just running. He's looking to do some shit.
Yeah, one of my notes is gets off the ball in the run game, but no control to it.
Yeah, he plays wild. He's the we say that Kubas is balanced, and he is the opposite of balanced, square, and in control. He's a wild.
He uses
player.
a good butt block on the backside of zone.
You know what? I have the same thing. I said he does this thing on reach blocks where if he crosses the face of the defender, he'll just turn his back to them and throw on the brakes to try and keep him behind.
It's called a butt block.
I don't know if I've ever seen that. He does it consistently.
Guys will do that in the NFL every once in a while. Like you said, he did like 7 times in one game.
Oh, and he either got hurt or benched during his only start versus Kansas State this past year.
He got hurt. He got rolled up on.
Okay, but that's so funny that we have two of the more unique notes about a player that you can have about his feet going way high in the air, and then he does the butt block thing, crossing the defender's face. It's so strange how we both have those notes.
Yeah. So Justin, that's the offensive UD. I'm going to be honest with you, the listeners. Now that you've made it to the end, I will be honest with you. I'm a lot more excited for the defensive UDFA class, right? Like we have Alex Johnson, a DB out of UCLA who had 5 interceptions. Casey Rogers, the defensive tackle out of Oregon, has played some good ball. And then I can't remember the edge rusher out of LSU who's played at like 4 different colleges. I'm excited to talk about him. So I'm a little more excited about the defensive UD. And we have a kicker from Rutgers, Justin. I figure we just throw that on the defensive one.
Yeah.
But I will bring you something from that. I will give you some type of unique note on the Rutgers kicker.
Okay.
From Ireland, Justin. So that's an episode. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys again for sticking with us throughout the whole draft and everything that goes with that. And hey, you still have the defensive undrafted free agent episode. And guess what? One of my favorite parts of the offseason, Justin, is coming up in 2 weeks. You know what that is? Rookie camp.
Yeah.
I love rookie camp. I love having literally like 80 new players and then like 3 returning Giants players who didn't like qualify to not be eligible for rookie camp. I love it. I love it more than anything in the world. We get the annual draft class photo with the GM and the head coach. There's just so many beautiful things about rookie camp that the kid loves. All right, we appreciate you guys. We will see you on Monday for the defensive UDFA pod, and then we'll get back to normal after that. We appreciate you. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.